Welcome to Scrapbook Live. Today is January 24th, and I am Megan Jacks, and we have a wonderful edition of Scrapbook Live today. And so we have a layout that is from the Creative Memories blog. It is a layout from several years ago now. It's hard to think that we're, talking about that when we're referring to 2020. That seems like a really long time ago. A lot has happened obviously since then, but this layout used the Genuine collection. And that collection came out in 2020, beginning of 2020. And this blog post is from January 2020. On the handout, you will see at the top there is a QR code. If you want to go to the original layout or the original blog post, you can follow that QR code with your device, or you can just go to the Creative Memories blog and go to January 2020 in the search. There is a couple different ways you can search the blog. You can type in a tool or a collection and it will take you to those posts that feature those items, or you can use the month section. You can also use the category. So if you're looking for sketches, if you are looking for blog or border ideas, you can use that type of a thing. But for this one, if you're trying to find it, the QR code doesn't work for you, I would just go search by January 2020, and that'll pull up all of the posts from January of 2020. So hopefully you have a chance to either have looked at the handout or printed the handout. There is a hashtag at the bottom of the handout. It says Scrapbook Live 0124. And that is the hashtag you'll want to use if you share the blog or share your version of this layout in the Scrapbooking with Megan Facebook group, or you can share it anywhere you want. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to my overhead camera and we will get started. Okay, so for today's layout, the Genuine collection was one of my favorite collections. I love the colors. It's a very great combination between some more geometric prints and more contrasting but complementing botanical type prints. So it's really nice, warm colors and just works out really well. So this layout, we are again going to be working with some mats. You can see they are using some 4.5 by 6.5 inch mat. They use a title mat. They add in a sticker. And there's 2 photos on here. And the big thing is at the bottom, you will notice that banner detail across the bottom. Those banners are definitely a key feature of this particular layout. They brought that banner detail back up here to the top, you can see as well. And those banners are so easy to just make with some scraps. So you will probably have no problem within your stash to be able to find some scraps to complement your photos and create some banners for that quick detail. The other great thing about this particular layout is if you need to rotate it, those banners will go to the side just perfectly, and you'll be able to use vertical photos. This photo here is not quite square. It looks like it's square. I had to highlight the photos in here, the measurements form, just so I would keep track of what they were. It uses a 4x6 photo, and then you have a 4.5. It's 4 inches wide by 4.5 tall inch photo here, so not quite a square. The one thing to note here is we do have 3 layers of kind of background pieces. You can see they start off with a background, kind of a darker blue background paper. They have a very light border around then a mid-tone blue background piece. And then you cover it all up, or a good portion of it, with your photos and mats and other decorative details. So one of the things we're going to do is I'm going to talk to you about cutting out the middles. We've done it before. We're going to cut out the middles of 2 of the pieces. I am going to work with the full background page because that's going to give me the most stability. I am also, when I'm looking at my papers that I've chosen, I am working with some photos from back over in Pullman, Washington, which is in Eastern Washington. This is surprisingly August on, I believe that's the Snake River, just southwest of Pullman. There is a little park. I've been to it before by myself, but we went over with Pullman with Cody. My husband and I took Cody on this little, kind of like half-mile little loop where we got to look at the river and just kind of look around. And it was very dry. It was August. Towards the end of August. My son had already started college. We were taking some stuff to him over at Washington State, and we just went here for this. And it was a dismal day. It was raining. It was sprinkling. We stopped. They picked some blueberries. We had some, the wildflowers were mostly dead. But anyway, these are my photos. I have really enjoyed using the wide open places photo collection for the pictures that I've had from Pullman as we've been ventured outside and things. So I did default going back to that collection. But I also thought that the Golden Harvest collection actually has a lot of really nice tonal colors that do work well with the wide open places. So if you're looking for additional pieces that mix and match, you can find some of that within those two collections. So we went, I am using this dark brown tonal piece out of Golden Harvest. It is the peachy on one side. It has pine trees and I think acorns is a little bit of a funny combination there with I think those are acorns and pine looking leaves. They're definitely not oak leaves for a background piece. And the reason I'm using a tonal piece here, I already said I'm going to be using the entire sheet here. I'm going to build right on this. You could use a piece of cardstock if you do not want to use up your entire piece of tonal paper. If you decide you want to try to conserve paper and cut out a piece, you need to make sure you leave a section at the bottom to put those banners here. That's one of the reasons I decided I am just going to use the solid piece, build on it. And I have like 5 sheets of this particular piece left in my Golden Harvest folder because I've opened various packages to use other pieces. And this has been one that's just kind of gotten left behind. So I'm perfectly fine using this. You could also use cardstock. You don't see a ton of it in the overall layout. It's just hints of that. All right. So next up, though, I knew I wanted to use this kind of this camel tonal piece. This piece, this mid-tone brown, is out of the wide open places. The backside is the cream with rusty flower detail. I liked this. It worked well. I wanted to use this particular piece of paper. It's got that same mid-tone in there, but I wanted a little bit of a striking piece to go around it, a little bit of a contrast. So I'm pulling this rustic, scratched up, painted, rusty metal piece of paper. The backside of it is the galvanized, the steel, like it would be on a silo type thing. So that's going to come in like such. So here's what I've got going. I'm going to use my brown for my background. I will leave this whole. I am going to trim down these 2 pieces to their appropriate size rectangle that's listed on the blog post. And then I am going to go ahead and cut out a frame out of each of these. They don't need to be solid pieces. That will allow me to have little bits left over for other projects. I do like these 2 colors. So, and then I needed some mats. I really liked this kind of dark, tealish color plaid. I really liked it. It looked really well, worked well. So I didn't have any mats that color in my mat pack from Wide Open Places or out of Golden Harvest. So I went ahead and I did cut a piece of mat out of this. You can see here that this would have been 12 wide. And then I have had some scraps that I've worked with that allowed me to pull a piece to work with the this decorative detail. As we get over here where you can see this plaid, they do have a piece of decorative paper right there, that plaid. I decided I wanted that to be this pattern here. So I went ahead and I cut a piece, and I think this is my piece right there. I actually need to hold on to it, this piece. Yep, that's my piece. I kind of pieced it together a little bit last night to make sure I liked the direction I was going so you guys didn't have to see me hemming and hawing. I know we always talk about paper as the hardest part to pick out. I will tell you guys, it took me a solid 30 to 40 minutes to really put together even the paper choices. Part of it was I couldn't find the Wide Open Places initially, so I thought I was only going to be able to use Golden Harvest, and then I found it, and it was just crazy. So paper choices, it takes a long time. I have to always remind myself, be forgiving to myself. It's okay if it takes a while. I always like the end result, so it's worth the time to do it. Okay, so getting started, I am going to go ahead. I know I'm using this piece just as it is, so I'm going to set it to the side. Next up, it wants me to cut the lighter, the outside rectangle. It is 11 1/4 by 9 3/4. 11 3/4 by 9. 11 1/4 by 9 3/4. So let me get my trimmer out. I do know that I want to be able to use a full 12-inch length of this piece, but I wanted to go horizontal with my stripes going up and down. So I need to make sure when I cut my paper that I am leaving myself a full length of this piece. So I'm actually going to go ahead and pull my edge out here, and I'm going to cut this 9 3/4 inch first, 9 3/4 inch. That's going to give me a full 12-inch section here that is nice. It's the widest bit I can get. All right, so 9 3/4. And then I'm going to rotate it and cut it at 11 1/4. So I'm just going to cut off a little bit over here. Now, I've already mentioned that this piece, we're only going to see a small little outside edge. So I'm going to go ahead and cut. I'm going to do a 1-inch inside frame. So what I'm going to do here, to do a 1-inch frame, I could probably do a 1/2-inch frame if I want to, but I'm only going to do a 1-inch frame. I am going to start my piece over here at 1 inch. What you can see, you see how the edge of my blade housing is right at the edge of my paper? That is because this white line is 1 inch from the edge. And if you're new to the trimmer, this white line shows you where the blade, once you press it down, is going to start making that cut. So if I start right here and this edge is at the edge of my paper, I am making a cut 1 inch in from the edge. Then I can drag my blade over to the edge. So this left edge of my blade housing comes to the left edge of my paper and stop my cut. And that will give me 1 inch on each side without necessarily having to look here at my ruler and say, oh, I need to cut here at 10 1/4. It's just a quick way when you're doing that 1 inch frame. I do have my paper lined up at 1 inch just below my cut line there. Using your blade housing as your reference makes it easy to cut any size, a 1-inch frame out of any size of piece of paper. You don't have to make these cutout pieces if you don't want. I just prefer, especially when I'm using pattern paper, designer paper, I don't want to put 3 layers on there. I just don't need to. Okay, so there is my scrap of paper that I've got left over. So yeah, Jill's making the comment, I am skipping the clips. I'm skipping the clips here because they would have to move not every time, but they would have to move. And so since I'm not making the same cut over and over again, I'm making those adjustments. It's easy to do without using the clips because I'm making that 1-inch frame. All right, so there is my larger white frame. Next up, we're going to move on here to step 3, which is where they show the blue. I am using this tan brown. It's kind of that camel color. And I'm going to bring it out. And again, since I'm cutting a 12 by 12 piece, I'm going to choose my shortest edge. All right, so using my shortest edge, which is 9 1/2. If I come over here and I cut my 9 1/2 inch side first, that gives me the biggest length of 12 inches. If I were to cut the 11 inch first, you could see I would only have a full 12-inch length that's 1 inch wide. But I'm choosing the shortest of those 2 measurements, 9 1/2, and I'll cut my rectangle first. Now make sure this is the top edge of your paper over on the side. It really depends if you have a directional paper. I don't. This paper, it has a little bit of a direction to it, but nothing that I'm worried about. Same thing for the back side. It was my galvanized steel one that I needed to be careful to make sure I had those horizontal pieces. Okay, so here I've got my 9.5 inch over here on my trimmer, and I'll go ahead and cut. So you can see I've got that, it should be 2.5 inches wide. I could trim a border or anything else out of that. Rotate this, and I'm going to cut it at 11 inches. So our measurements, we are only going to have 1/8 of an inch of that white, that creamy color that I just cut that frame from, showing around the edges. Okay, so here we go. That was cut to 11 inches. All right, so again, we are going to be covering this all up. You can see we cover up a good portion of that blue with our matte pieces, our decorative elements, and our photos. So what I'm going to do is cut a 1-inch frame again. Same technique. Really quick though, I am just going to double check. Let me show you. See, this is going to be on here, and look how little of that white we're showing, but it's going to make such a huge impact on the layout itself. So even though there's just a little bit, that's enough to make a big statement, especially because they have such good contrast between the dark brown and this medium tone brown. That kind of much brighter creamy color is going to stand out nicely. All right, so I'm putting this in here just the way I did before, coming at not at the 1 inch below my cut line. Starting my flush on the right side edge of my blade housing to my paper, and I'm going to cut all the way over just until my blade housing hits the edge of that side of the paper, and rotate. This is a great way to do those 1-inch frames. And just work our way all the way around. There we go. All right. So now let's do some assembly. We'll get these pieces put onto our layout. I am going to do the same thing I've been doing about, we are going to, I'm going to go ahead and use some repo adhesive and secure my paper to the background. I do see a question. Linda's asking about talking about Peekaboo. So Linda, we're going to be putting together our layout, and then I am going to talk about Peekaboo Pockets here in just a little bit. I've just got to get to the point that I'm ready to use the Peekaboo Pockets, and I will talk about how you can customize Peekaboo Pockets to work with any size. So we're getting there. We're just going to work our way through the layout first. So I went ahead, secured my background piece to my mat, just so it stays in place. Got enough wobbly things I'm going to be working with, especially these frames. Frames are a little more wobbly. I want this piece of paper. This frame here is 11 3/4 inches wide. So I'm going to have about 3/8 of an inch all the way around to give me even spacing here on the 3 sides. Should be about 3/8 of an inch. I am going to use repo adhesive just in case I have to move it. We'll be a little bit generous with putting it on here though. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Repo sticks pretty good. And we'll layer this in. Get that put in there nice and straight, or as straight as possible. And then next up, we will come in with this piece, and you can see very, very narrow line all the way around, about 1/8 of an inch. So the 1-inch frame was definitely wider than I needed, but it's easier to cut. If you cut closer to something like 1/2 inch, it's just going to be a little bit more, work to cut, a little more thinking. Okay, so there we have the 2 frames on here. Now it is time to start putting our the rest of the pieces into place. So I already talked about, you can see here the different elements we have. We have two 4.5 by 6.5 inch mats. They have used the top mat to house a title, a smaller 4 by 6 title mat. You could easily put a photo there, or I'm going to Peekaboo Pocket here, just a standard 4 by 6 Peekaboo Pocket here. Behind my title mat. So I actually have, let's see here. Oh, the first thing I need to do though is I needed to decide what color my two mats were going to be. They use kind of that wood tone with a brighter orange color from the, the orange brown color from the collection. I mentioned before that I really liked this dark teal color. Part of the reason I really like the dark teal color because it went well with this piece. I want this piece to be my decorative element in here. You can see where they use the plaid on the side. That may be a good spot to start for your layout if you've got a piece of paper that you want to show off. But just a reminder, you can also cut that out of a mat. I could have cut this out of a mat here. This mat is going to come up here to the top. Now over here to the side, they have a journal box over here to the side, and they have taken a journal box and they cut it out of a larger variety mat. So the larger variety mats are 6.5 inches wide by 4.5 inches tall. Our two elements that we're working with here are both 4.5 inches tall. So I've got 9 inches between these two things. So if I want something to tuck in here real nice, I need it to be at least 4.5 inches tall. And the 4.5 and then 3.25 inch wide. So that should tuck in there. I can see I'm going to be a little bit tight. I may have to make an adjustment over here because I think my mat's going to be a little wider. I think they were able to come in with a slightly narrower mat. I really only have 3 inches to go. And I can see here with my mat, if I come all the way, I'm going to have to tuck in one of the edge. They probably, oh, I know what it is. Okay, here's my thing. I actually cut this piece a little wide. It's supposed to be 3/4 inch. There's where I did. I cut it to 1 inch. This mat, this 4.5 or 6.5 inch wide by 4.5 inch tall, I can cut this right down the middle. So 3.25 inch wide is going to give me that mat. You could also just use a piece of journaling paper. You could use, just cut yourself, put another photo there. You could put anything you want there. I just liked this journal box. This is actually out of the Golden Harvest collection. That's going to fit right there. And then up here, we use a photo. It's going to be 4 inches wide by 4.5 inches tall. And this is where I ran into problems, especially for this particular layout. I had more photos than I wanted to use. And normally I can get away with using the 4 by 6 Peekaboo Pockets with a 4 by 4 Peekaboo Pocket, right? We have the 4 by 4 Peekaboo Pockets that I could flip right here. The challenge is this is 4.5 inches tall. So I could either just put them on a matted piece of, put another 4.5 by 3 and 4.5 by 4 inch piece of paper up here and just put on a 4 by 4 Peekaboo Pocket. Would work just fine. But I decided I was going to go ahead and do a custom Peekaboo Pocket. So this is my custom Peekaboo Pocket. I will show you, I'm going to kind of get through this part of the layout first, and let's get this kind of all done together. And then I'm going to visit how I made my custom Peekaboo Pocket. This is something you could do. I would not, when I was putting my things together, I would not break in the middle of my layout to put my custom Peekaboo Pocket together. I know I can do it. So I'd finish my layout and then go work, make my custom Peekaboo Pockets. So what I need is I have a photo somewhere that is going to go right there. It actually ends up being this one of my husband picking the blueberry or the blackberries off of the path. So photos that are going to be going here. I have 3 photos that are going to go inside of a Peekaboo Pocket. Here. It's going to flap open one way or the other. I also have, I'm going to be using this mat. It says Making Memories. It has that galvanized tin. Or it's not my tin, but you know what I mean. And then I have these photos. It's not a panoramic print. It's just photos 2 different directions of the Snake River from the trail we were on. And what I'm going to do is I am going to have this Peekaboo Pocket open sideways. It'll open to the right, and it will have these photos will come through my Peekaboo Pocket. So something to that effect when you open it up. It'll give you kind of a pseudo panoramic. It's not a true panorama of the landscape that we saw, of the view from our little path. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put these pieces into place, start working on some of these. And once I get all that done, then we're going to go talk about putting this down here at the bottom. So let's go ahead. Oh, the one thing I do need here though, we'll talk about these banners because I need to make an adjustment with this piece. The banner pieces, I started pulling colors out of my layout. So I want to show, because I am using some red. And the reason I'm using red is my son is wearing his Wazoo shirt. So he's got red in his shirt. And so I am going to be pulling in, I have some red out of the collection. I've got that same color piece up here. I've got some weathered board look, some more. Oh, there was some more of that dark teal color. I already started making some banner cuts, but you literally just start cutting strips of paper. I cut mine about 1 inch wide. And after I made my long strip cut at 1 inch wide by 12 inches, then I came over here and I cut them all at 1 3/4 of an inch per step 6. And I would just cut all of them at 1 3/4 inch. You have a little bit of scrap left over. And then if I needed to, I didn't want them all to be 1 inch wide. I would grab my personal trimmer because it's a little easier for me to hold. And I cut a few of them at 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. You could, of course, cut your entire strip at 3/4 inch, and then you're not over here cutting off these tiny little pieces. But I knew I didn't want them all to be 3/4 inch. It was easy enough for me to cut at 1 inch and then cut off the 1/4 inch with my personal trimmer. So I am looking here. I'm seeing some comments about the video stopped. I am not seeing anything at my end. Okay, so I'm seeing some comments. It's still good. So I'm sorry that if it stopped for you. I did have some issues last week with my video, but I corrected a cord. I think Kitty had bitten through a cord of mine and made it not work, but I had good luck last week with some other videos. So I think we're okay. I'm going to just keep going and hope for the best. Sally is saying that she can't find it on the Creative Memories blog. I don't know if you're able to use the QR code with your device, or you can search into January of 2020 and hopefully be able to find it there, unless I messed up and I didn't get the date right. Once you make your banner pieces, you fold it in half, use your scissors, and from the folded edge, you're going to cut a little bit up from the folded edge down to that outside corner, and you've got your banner piece. And then you just repeat that until you have all the pieces that you want. And I'm using the front and the back, so I'll get those put on in just a quick second. I want to bring in this orange that's up here, down here to my banner piece, just to carry that color a little bit more throughout. This is the only place I have. It's a darker, kind of a burnt orange. I want to bring it down here. It's the same color that is in my, this piece, this pattern paper here. So I want to bring it in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to frame cut this out, and I'm going to give myself a piece so I can cut 2 or 3 banners out of my card or out of the mat. So to do that, I do not want to cut a 1 inch frame. I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch frame. I need it to be, I need to have at least a 1/4 inch exposure. So by doing a 1/2 inch, I will have enough to overlap with my photo. So for this one, we're going to have to do just a little bit of math. I will have to pay a little more attention. I'm going to start at 1/2 inch. I'm going to end at 6. I'm cutting the 6.5 inch length first. I'm going to start at 1/2 inch and cut to 4. I'm cutting the 6-inch side. I've lined it up at that 1/2 inch. I'm starting at 1/2 inch. I'm putting my white line at 1/2 inch and cutting over till my white line comes to 6 inches. And one more cut from 1/2 inch over to 4, using that white line as my guide. And there I've cut it out. You could also use the CCS that Teresa's mentioning. She's used the custom cutting system. Definitely could do that. You definitely would be an option too. I'm going to put that mat back in place there, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut this to, I'm going to cut one strip to 1 inch wide. Come down and cut it at 1 3/4 inch. I'll cut 2 of them that way. I don't know if I can get 3. Oh, I get close to 3. I can get 3 out of that segment. One of them I'm going to take down to be a little bit more narrow, so I'll grab my personal trimmer to make this cut a little bit easier to hold on to. I am just lining it up so it's flush with that 3/4 inch mark and cutting. Now for this piece, I am not able to fold it in half. If I fold it in half, it will not, I just worry that it won't bounce back, right? That it's going to show that fold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my other pieces, and I could do this on the back side so my pencil lines won't show, and grab a pencil, and I'm going to use one of my previously cut banner edges and trim. Now, if you have a banner punch, you can try using that. You know, that'll do the ribbon ends. You could certainly use your tools that might be able to help you do that. So I just used one of my previously cut pieces as my guide to cut this, and there we go. So now I'm going to have some of those banner pieces that are going to have that orangey color that's up at the top. Okay, with that in mind, let me start putting some of these pieces into place. I am going to use, well, I should probably go ahead and start using regular adhesive. Should have about 1/4 inch all the way around. You can line up your pieces and kind of just see, like I know this mat plus this photo, I should have even spacing, and that looks good. Lay it in there. This piece goes right below the outside edge of this mat. This mat was cut actually out of a piece of paper. It is the 4.5 by 6.5. So if you don't have variety cut mats, you just cut your piece of paper to that size or cardstock. Oops, this piece actually has to, I have to overlap. This is supposed to be 3/4 inch. I cut mine to 1 inch. So I need to overlap by 1/4 inch. But to get my spacing correct, I'm actually going to put this piece to this edge, and then I'll put my mat right up against that. So there we go. Okay, so here is my base layout. I've got all my pieces in position here to help me keep things organized. Now, I want to, this photo is going to go on the actual page itself. The other two that go with it will go on the Peekaboo Pocket. They are munching on some pieces of wheat. I don't know, they're being silly. My husband and my son can be pretty silly. Up here at the top, I already mentioned I was going to have that panoramic that's going to open up like this. So my photo that goes here is going to be the east facing photo. We are looking south on the river, across the river there. These will go into a Peekaboo Pocket that will close, so you'll actually see the title here. This is going to have a Peekaboo Pocket. I won't worry about it right now. Now, next up, the next thing we need to do is we are going to go ahead and put our banners at the bottom. I do see a question from Jackie about this piece of orange flowered mat. It is 4.5 tall by 6.5 inch wide, the same size as this mat around this lower photo here. So the piece, Belinda's asking about maybe this piece here, the cuff down the left trim. I'm not sure if you're talking about this piece right here. I just overlapped it. It's supposed to be 3/4 inch wide. I cut it too big. I cut it to 1 inch, but it needs to be 3/4. So I went ahead and just overlapped. And then another question from Anne about repositional versus regular adhesive. I usually default to repositionable adhesive. That's the one I typically go for, but I have had good success with repositionable on entire layouts. Usually though, for photos, I started using regular adhesive a little bit more so that I don't know, evening out my supply usage. I do think I use more repo adhesive when I use repo versus regular adhesive. So sometimes I do a little bit better with if I use, if I tell myself to rotate through my supplies a little bit more. Definitely repo on delicate things like layered or like laser cut borders and other delicate cut things. It's easier to apply. Okay, so the banners here at the bottom, I've got a bunch cut already. Let me show you. You want them to vary in width a little bit so that you can have some narrower ones and some lighter, wider ones. Let's see here. And I'm just going to kind of put them on. They are not, in the example they give, they are not overlapping. They do vary in height a little bit. So I might come back and trim some of mine down. You want them to come across. Let's see here. I really don't know. I am making this part up as I kind of go along in terms of how this is going to work. I've got various colors that I want to work with. I am going to come across the top. I do know I'm going to come across the top with this, a small strip. I'm going to cut down a narrow strip of this galvanized piece or this tin piece there because I wanted it to match up here. So where they talk about putting a border, like a sticker border. So I got to cut a few more pieces. Oh, here's one. Let's see. I need to make a narrow, this little piece here needs to be given a banner cut. And just working my way across, I have to cut some more pieces. You're always, when you're cutting your banners, make sure you always cut from the folded edge. That's the side you're cutting from the folded edge down to that outside corner. is, I should have one more. Oh, there it is. Losing track of my pieces. I think I need to trim one more. I want another piece of that darker teal color, and I want it to be a narrow piece. So I'm gonna go ahead and just trim it at 3/4 of an inch by 1 3/4. And this is where the math is going to come in, because I got to look here. It looks like I am going to need, I may have a really narrow piece here, like more narrow than I want. It should only be at 3/4. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come in, and I think I'm going to trim this piece down to actually be just 3/4 of an inch. And that will let me tuck in another 3/4 inch there. So I have to take away a 1/4 of an inch. I can gain a 1/4 of an inch on that final piece. And this is just mixing and matching. There is no, rhyme or reason. Just mixing and matching to get the look that you want with the pieces you have. Mine are all either 3/4 of an inch or 1 inch wide. If you want to make yours wider or narrower, you could. Okay, that's what I'm going with, I think. I'm a little worried that brown on the outside, that dark green on the outside edge doesn't quite stand out as much as I would like. I think I'm going to go with that. Okay, so now that I have this, I need to decide if I'm going to make any adjustments, because I can tuck under. Maybe that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to pull these down a little bit. I'm going to grab my multi-purpose tool, and rather than starting to have to decide to cut these, I'm actually just going to come in here and just loosen the paper a little bit, that adhesive on that lowest layer, and then I can slide my mats up underneath a little bit if I want, or these banners up under there. I'm going to use regular adhesive here. I have found sometimes with regular adhesive, as long as I don't put a lot of pressure on it, I have a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm just going to set some of these in place, keeping them in the order I want them, but just off to the side. Actually, okay, outside edge, I want this to be flush. This one will come under just a little bit. I changed my mind. I'm going to use Repo adhesive. It was being just a little obstinate. I am not putting any of them even next to each other, so they're flush along the sides, but the bottoms, I am varying the bottoms a little bit. Get that put on there. Yeah, it's working really just easier to just be able to slide it under, and maybe that's what the directions even say to do. I am sometimes bad about reading word for word through the instructions. I'm not sure if anybody else is like that, where you just like, whatever, I'll just look at the picture and put it together from there. As long as I have some measurements, can get me going. All right, so the last banner is going to go into place. And I was a little bit short. Oh well. My banner is a little, so as what usually happens when you are doing things like this and you say, oh, everything is a certain measurement and you start putting them next to each other, sometimes you end up with that little bit over here that just gets kind of messed up. And that is because even though you think you're cutting these at 3/4 of an inch or 1 inch and you've got the exact measurements to go the full length, you may be off by a 1/16 of an inch or a 32nd of an inch across all of these pieces starts to add up. So I am off by about 1/8 of an inch here. So what I'm going to do is I have another piece of this wood piece. I've already cut my banners from it, but so I am just going to chop off a little from each side to get it to fit into place. So I am doing just a tiny little cut off of each side so that my banner stays even. And it's going to fit right in there. So it's a little bit more, it's probably closer to 7/8 of an inch rather than 3/4. There we go. Yeah, those pesky measurements when you are cutting so many little pieces. Okay, so there we have the banners all put into place. You can see here, looking good. Next up, I need to finish it. I need to come across here. This is where you can see they have used, I'm pretty certain that that was a sticker. They used a border sticker out of the genuine border sticker pack, or the sticker pack. And I am going to just cut a piece of this galvanized, with this, the metal. And I want it to be, oh, let's see here. I don't want it to be any more I could cut it, I could come up to 1/2 inch, I think, and do it, but I don't think I want it to be 1/2 inch. Well, I'm gonna cut it to be 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch. I saw somebody asking about the Creative Memories ruler, and unfortunately, I do not have this anymore of this Creative Memories ruler. They came out with that one several years ago. It sold out super fast. And we have not gotten one back. Just a basic ruler, just like it. They've had those 0 centering rulers and the other one. Okay, so there is the piece across the bottom. I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm not 100% sold on it. I am not 100% sold on that piece because one of the problems I'm having is this paper, you can see, look how much brighter and bluer that is than the mat itself. So I'm going to think about it. But if you have a sticker, a perfect sticker that goes across there, you could certainly put it in place. I may look through my paper pack and see if there's some other stuff that I have that might go in there. What I would need to do is I would need to trim this down to be 11 1/4 inch wide. So let me cut off 3/4 of an inch. And that would theoretically mat into place. I am not 100% sure I like this here. I'm not sure, maybe if I bump it up a little and I don't have the white showing, it just doesn't quite go with that mat. I was hoping that it would, and it just doesn't. It's a little bit too blue and bright compared to this. Okay, so I like it just with the banners. not so keen on this right now. I will look through the rest of my paper and see if I have something there that I feel that could go across and pull some more pieces together. So I am going to leave this here for right now. I need some journaling to do. I may have some other stickers or whatnot to put into place, but it's Peekaboo Pocket, and let's talk about this Peekaboo Pocket, the custom Peekaboo Pocket. So I had mentioned before that I had some more photos that I wanted to put in place. I had this really cute, just, this at the end of the season, these poor sunflowers, but they're doing their job. They are providing sustenance for the insects that need some love and attention there. So the sunflowers are these little flowers are doing their job. But I wanted to be able to include more photos in this layout. So, but this isn't a square. It's not 4x4. It's not even 4x5. It's 4x4.5. So I went ahead and I cut my photos to 4 inches wide by 4.5 inches tall. And now I need to make a custom Peekaboo Pocket. To do that, you are going to want to use the Fuse tool. This is, I don't know, by We Are Memory Keepers. It allows you to make these custom pockets out of the plastic style material. So to do this, it plugs in. I am not going to live demo it. I actually have another video that talks about using the Fuse tool. So I'm going to pretend as if I have a very hot tool. You will want to let this heat up. You plug it in, it automatically turns on. There's no on-off switch. So when you plug it in, it starts to heat up. When you are done with it or you are leaving it alone for a while, unplug it so that it cools off. It comes with a handy little thing that you put here. It's going to want to fall off my table now because there we go, to rest it. It has different tool attachments. This is the rotator one. There is one that is more like a pen style that is would maybe I think just be for cutting. But I only ever use this rotary little tool, and it makes those little perforations that ultimately will bind your Peekaboo Pocket together. So you start off with a 4x6 Peekaboo Pocket. In this particular case, you could actually use this with any size Peekaboo Pocket, but my particular one, I started with a 4x6 because that's the size that was going to be the closest to go with. So here we have the 4x6 Peekaboo Pocket. I put in my photo. You don't have to, I put in my photo, but you don't have to necessarily do that. I do recommend putting whatever, even if you cut a piece of cardstock or a piece of printer paper or scrap paper or whatever, put the size of material that you want to be in there. I found that to be the easiest. So I slid in my picture. I lined it up all the way at the top. Make sure it stays at that top edge. Here's my flapped edge. And then what I did this just on a piece of the paper of a cardboard that comes with our cardstock. I do not use my mat for this. You could probably use maybe other things. I have found the cardboard works the best. It works just fine. Nothing's going to melt to it. It does great. Then what you're going to want to do is, if you have never used, when you first get your Fuse tool, what I'd like you to do is sacrifice a 4x6 Peekaboo Pocket or another Peekaboo Pocket size you don't use. Like maybe you don't use the short flap side very often. So use that one and just practice making those, how fast you need to go, how smooth you need to go to make your, the passes with the tool. So what I would normally do here is I get this all set to go, and then I actually put my Fuse tool. I'm going to run my tool right in this space right here, this groove. I'm going to line up just on the edge of my Peekaboo Pocket, and I would run my Fuse tool across it. You want to be steady, but not too fast. Give it a few minutes to warm up, and then you're going to put it in the groove, and you're just going to move along. Nice and steady. You don't have to go to the flap. So if you saw where the flap is, you can end where the flap starts. Okay? Now I have practiced this well off to the edge of my paper. I'm not anywhere close. I always do that even if I have practiced and practiced over and over again. I'm wanting to check to see if my Fuse tool is at temperature. So I might make a few passes of them. And I will go ahead and do another pass down my Peekaboo pocket and see. And then what you can do is you can actually lift your Peekaboo pocket up. Remember, mine's not on. So normally you would see that kind of a line from where the tool is turned on and it's starting to melt. And you're going to want to see if you can lift and separate. If you can lift and separate, it's not hot enough. You need to let it, or you may need to go a little slower. The other trick I found when I did mine, this is what I ended up doing. I ended up lining it up. After I practiced, I was fine with how hot my tool was. It had been on for a while. It was as hot as it's going to get. I line this up so that I can just see the edge of my photo and I go a little bit past it. I can see my photo through here. You can also, if you want to, use this outside edge if that's easier for you to line up. You don't have to use that inside groove, and then you would just line up the edge and then go along the edge of the ruler here. I do like the grooved part, the slot, just because you know you're not going to veer off course. Take the time to find out where your edge is, lay it down. And then I would run it. Run it along here all the way through. You stop at the flap. What I found was it was still, I could still pry it open. So what I would do, flip it over, making sure your piece is in here. And then we're going to come from the back side. We're going to line up our tool again, our ruler piece here. And I'm going to go ahead and do another pass on the back side. That is what I did for this one. You can maybe a little bit see that I wasn't perfectly getting them lined up, but it's nice and tight. It's nice and sealed. And then after I did that, I just cut it off with my trimmer. I think I used a personal trimmer to cut this one. You could use your rotary trimmer. So the fuse tool, I see a question asking about the fuse tool. I think you could, I bought mine from Amazon. You can just type in fuse tool and it will probably get those. I think I will make sure it gets linked in my blog post. So somebody's saying they have the fuse tool mat, so you can line things up. And yes, there are going to be some tools that will help you with lining up. It really depends on how comfortable you are. Some of it comes down to vision. I know my vision is getting a lot, not as good as it used to be on close up things. I have reached the age in my life where I am using all sorts of reading glasses and so forth. But after you get your custom Peekaboo pocket made, you would go ahead and you just put all your pieces in there. So it works really great to make those custom size. My new space upstairs, I actually have a better spot to have the fuse tool. A fuse tool more available for me to use. So I am excited to be able to use the fuse tool more with more custom Peekaboo pockets. It was one of those things in my space downstairs. I didn't quite have as much surface space. I was short on counters. You know, I had that Murphy bed behind me, and now on both sides of my desk space, I have a little bit more there. So this is going to be my Peekaboo pocket that will sit up here. It will open up to the side. And then this one will also open up. This one will more than likely flap open unless, well, it may open to the side too, because I have a lot of Peekaboo pockets that have the short edge. I should not have used that side, the long side. This is what we talk about, the short side. The flap is on the short side. So it either opens top to bottom or side to side. But more than likely, I know this one's going to come in like such. And then I'll do the same for the bottom images. So that will sit on there. So I'm going to have a bunch of Peekaboo pockets on here, and I may end up just leaving that bottom just the way it is. So I kind of like those banners down there. I will mess around a little bit and see if I can find something to go down there. But for the most part, I'm calling this really close to being done. So that's what I've got for you guys today on Scrapbook Live. Just a reminder, I will not be here next week. I literally won't I'll be getting ready to I'll be at the airport. I am taking Cody with me to Arizona. We're going to go to Phoenix and see my family. My parents winter there. My brother lives there. So we'll be going to see some family and just take advantage of hopefully some sunshine. So if you're in the Phoenix area, if you could please order some sunshine and like 60 degrees. I don't even need it to be, 60 degrees would be fantastic. Um, but yeah, if we could have some sunshine, I think they're expecting a little bit of rain in the 10-day forecast. At the end of the 10-day forecast, that's when I'm supposed to be there. I really want some sunshine. So I will not be here next week for Scrapbook Live, but we will come back. I will be back on February, whatever the first Wednesday of February is. Secret Box is out. It is available. The UPS man drove by and he did not drop off my 2-day order. I was really disappointed. I'm hoping it's on a different truck that's going to show up a little later today because, I gotta know what's in there. So I will, if you get your Secret Box, keep it on the down low, right? I'm super excited about this one. Love, love, love the colors of this one. I am so excited about that. Kim saying she just got back from Phoenix. It was cold and rainy. Yeah, that's sometimes how Phoenix is this time of year. I know that happens. My parents actually, when they flew in yesterday, they had to circle the airport 3 times before they could land. There was a little microburst that showered down upon the airport. So let's see. So Secret Box is out. There will be a product release next week on Monday. So Friday will be a preview. Friday we'll have the new February collections. I do know, and I know there's been questions, we will be at some point this year, first part of the year, we will be seeing a new baby collection and a new wedding collection. I do not know the timing, but I know they're coming. So for those of you who are expecting new babies, wink, wink, Miss Kim is expecting a grandbaby. There'll be some options. So looking forward to seeing what those are. And I think that's about all I have to share with you guys. I'm looking forward to all the fun. We're still in scrapbook season, still in the season. So everybody take care. Have a great weekend. Hopefully it's a scrappy weekend. And I will see you all in the first week of February. Thanks for watching.